you're taking in information, whether it's verbal or written, slow down, listen to the words or hear the words or read the words, and listen for understanding of what the person's saying or what the text is saying, and then take action from there. But
Today we are speaking with Bob Wischer. He is the relationship engineer, and he developed a coaching program, a group called Men Becoming Better Men Group. Bob, could you please introduce yourself and let people know a little more about you, please?
yeah, sure. I'm currently hanging out here in Michigan, currently rainy Michigan. But I started Been Becoming Better Men about 6 years ago as an in-person group, which morphed into a coaching program and some other things. But what I do is I help men strengthen marriages, help them build trusting relationships, and align their ambition with their values so that they can win in business without sacrificing the things that matter most.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome looking into what you do, Bob. It's fascinating you come from that hardship learning experience from a bad marriage. I don't know if it's a bad marriage, but it's a marriage that was dissolved. Okay. And, it really differs in marriages a lot. So I'm careful that I don't stomp on people's feet when I talk about my own experiences because they differ in many ways. So I really want to start here by could you explain what a man is to us?
What a man is. Oh, wow. Aside from the obvious, the physical natures of it.
Yes, biological aside.
Yeah, the biological pieces. Yeah, I think we could skip that part. What a man is. Never really been asked that question that way, but what I think of when I think of a man is someone who's a leader, a protector, a provider. The traditional sense of the word, but not not I don't want to use the word not a ruler, not a king. Um, I mean, a lot of men can feel like they're king of the world, but it's not a ruling type of thing. I don't buy into that. I think um, there's reasons for and purpose behind a lot of the leadership things and protection pieces that we need to do. Obviously, physically stronger in most cases. Uh, Traditionally in the workplace, picking up the slack and doing those things. Where obviously we can't bear children, we can't do a lot of those things that women are doing traditionally and in marriages and relationships. So yeah, but I very traditional sense of the word, and just trying to lift men up to actually live into that, because a lot of men nowadays are kind of beaten down by the whole men are worthless type of scenario. And what I when I try to work with men on and teach men on is that we're not. We need to assume those leadership roles, and the more we let go of those leadership type roles, um, the more women are. That my understanding of it is women are taking on those roles because we're not performing them. And when women are performing those roles, they're again, they're not programmed, biologically DNA wide programmed to do those types of things, and they get frustrated, they get tired, they get out of sorts with that, and then they start looking at the husband. Why are you worthless? I'm going to go find a guy that isn't. So a lot of the guys that I work with are the type that have those. Well, it's usually at this point it's the guys that have lost those relationships have been not being the man that they could be or should be, and that the wives are like, you know, I'm checking out. I'm going to go have another relationship. I'm going to leave you. I'm going to whatever, because you're not providing that safety, that strength, that safety, that protection that traditionally comes with being a man.
Yeah, the roles have been shifting in the years, as we go on, and I find myself that we are seeing hardships develop out of these role changes, and it's very important for people to recognize that and own up to it. Be truthful with yourself. And I like that you started it off. It's really not a kingship, because just because you're bigger doesn't make you the ruler. And I really feel that that sense of the word, we as men have been pushed in several directions in the last few years. However, we got a bad name because of that rulership, that kingship. I'm the boss. That's it. That's the way it is. And I look back in these traditional roles that you speak about, and I see, I'm sure you'll recognize some of the old television shows where you find the mother, father both doing the dishes together, and they're discussing life as they are doing those chores together. We've gotten away from that. And I myself have been bringing that back into my relationship. And I understand when we eat together, we should clean up together. And we shouldn't assume that's your job, that's my job. No, no, that's not how it works. I really think that we need to get back into that traditional role where we are a family, and the family should be helping each other grow. What's your thought on that, Bob?
Yeah, absolutely. My wife and I, we discuss what we're going to do. It's not, you use the word assume, and that's where it gets off track. Is if the husband assumes that the wife's always going to do the dishes, and then he stews around because days and days go by with the sink filling up, there's resentment. A lot of times I have been divorced, obviously divorced the first time. There was a lot of scorekeeping in my first marriage. You did this, I did that. We have to keep things equal, and that's not really a solution either. The way I look at I'm married again now. My wife now is absolutely amazing. We discuss, there's certain things that I don't like to do. There's certain things she doesn't like to do. We've discussed those things, so we have that agreement, and we know that, okay, I'm going to take care of these things. You're going to take care of these things, and it makes it a lot more harmonious. That when things aren't getting done, it's like, we have a discussion about it. It's not, oh, I'm expecting that you're going to do this, and that I'm going to sit here and resent you and stew over it for weeks at a time.
Yeah, conflict always will arise out of bad communication skill. That's what I've learned over the years. Uh, Myself, I am on my 40th year, almost got it nailed for being married. We've been together 42, almost 43 years, and it's been very hard. But yes, it is awesome because we figured out how to get through that communication disharmony. And I found that it was my own fears keeping me from communicating effectively with my wife. If I say something, she'll leave me. If I say something, she might not like me. Is that how you felt?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I spent almost 20 years with my first marriage trying to make my wife happy or help her be happy, and learned very much the hard way that it was not possible. And I fought it for years and years and years before I finally just I had to throw in the towel. I couldn't do it anymore. And it's happiness is an internal job. I obviously wasn't happy myself. She wasn't happy. So how is an unhappy person going to make someone who's unhappy happy? That's a so I had to make myself happy first. And obviously she's probably off doing her own thing. Hopefully she's happy now. I haven't talked to her in probably 10 years, but I know my wife now is happy because she does what she needs to do to make herself be happy. And then we bring both of our happiness, our healthy relationships together, and communication and other things, and it's very harmonious. We fight very little. We'll get into it sometimes, but again, usually it dissipates very quickly because we both realize, and we even had this discussion yesterday about things that we say to each other that we're coming from a good place. We just some of our old wounding from our because she's divorced too. She had a difficult first marriage. I had a difficult first marriage. So a lot of our tendencies are to react in a way that was from a past situation, and then we have to stop and realize, oh, wait a minute, this is a new thing. We've agreed on these things. We're not gonna do this, and it dissipates it very quickly, and we get back on the same page. And usually 5 or 10 minutes later, we're cracking jokes and laughing again and having a good time. So
Well, that's a sign of a healthy relationship. We're always going to have conflict. And you really have to be aware that you have to take ownership of that emotional intelligence factor. And it took me years. I was 55 plus before I really got that, and then it started sinking in, and now I'm about 60 and I'm saying this works. And that's why I'm here doing what I'm doing. And I take that's the same value that you're finding with your journey on podcasting.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. Try and just taking that wisdom, like you said, and trying to help the younger generations to. One of my biggest things is I want to help men to not struggle with the things that I struggled with, because I had some very dark days during my late 30s and early 40s, that I really didn't wake up until my mid 40s when I had gone through the divorce, and I was like, wait a minute, here I am by myself. And my kids had graduated, pretty much either were close to or had graduated from high school. They were moving on to college, doing their thing. No wife to worry about. I was like, wait a minute, what's next for me? What am I going to do with my life? And I started thinking about all the things that I was good at, and all the things that, and it came very easily to me to jump into coaching and find that as a means to go back and give back to help guys that are coming up, get married as in their mid 20s, not knowing what's going on, raising kids, not knowing how to do that, and all those things that I learned the hard way back, because it's not like I was talking to my dad a lot about, hey, how do you raise a son and how do you raise a daughter. So yeah, it's a resource that is very available, because there's lots and lots of coaches out there. We all do different things. We work with different people on different stuff, and to have someone in your corner that's super valuable with the experience, so you don't have to make the same mistakes. I'm sure you'll find some more to make, but being able to avoid some of those ones that the one that I think is probably the most important is raising kids. I mean, I think I got really lucky. That was one area where my ex-wife and I really did excel, was raising our kids. They're both right now pursuing medical degrees, and both I look to be they're going to be very successful adults, but a lot of people put wounds and on their kids from growing up on how they're being and how they're acting and how they're relating and all that that really could be avoided if we had a little more education in that perspective. So that's one of the real key things that I like to look at, and then even in older guys like us, being able to go back and figure out maybe where those wounds happened in your life, so that we can kind of reframe those and reprogram those a little bit to where it's not dragging you down, back into that hurt people kind of thing. Just get rid of some of that old hurt and be able to move forward and have more harmonious relationships.
Yeah. So, Bob, do you speak to your children about this and ask them how they feel about the situation you went through together?
We've talked about it some. They've been kind of out on their own for the past several years now. So they're kind of I'm kind of just giving them some space to learn and live their lives. My youngest is already married, so he's wading through that and feeling that out, and in the middle of still actually in his degree, taking his degree work. So yeah, I think it's probably going to come around a little more as after they get through this decade of their 20s where they're still kind of in school learning and doing the things. And once they get into start having kids and things like that, I think we're probably going to have some more of those discussions.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to keep the door open for that, so they can retain that healthy relationship and learn from having that door open. Hey, what was this? Why did I go through it? A lot of us get lost and confused. You talk about past trauma, even pre-birth trauma, and that is extremely important for people to realize that in that womb you're developing, but you can still sense emotion and sound and what's going on in the atmosphere around you, and you're born into that.
Yeah, you have cognition at pre-birth. You have cognition. You can feel things and understand things. You can't verbalize them, obviously, but you can feel them. And that's actually one of my traumas. Is my parent? I was conceived before my parents were married, and I have a sense that there was a lot of I don't know, anger is the right word, but animosity, some stress, all the things that would go with, oh my God, we're having a baby, and we weren't planning to get married. Now we need to get married, and we live in this small community where judgment, all that stuff. So I think I did absorb a lot of that, and I made meanings of that internally in myself, and have beliefs and identity wrapped around it that really did mess me up a lot in my teenage years, my college years, and a lot into my first marriage.
Yeah, I think that's good to recognize. And actually, people don't dive deep enough into their past traumas, and they don't associate that with trauma a lot of the times. So recognizing that is huge. It took me quite a while to figure that out, but it is very, very true that we feel these things. Even still today, when you walk into a room, you can feel the atmosphere, and it's the same sense. So, how do we navigate conflict so we don't blow up during conflict? I'm sure you've been through many conflicts that blew out of proportion, as I have. And I've found there's ways to calm the storm before it blows over. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, it's something I've been working on the last probably 10 or so years, because I would get pretty angry with my ex-wife quite often, and never really understood what triggered it. And like I said, until I understood some of my past traumas, some of the things that had happened to me in the past, and understood that those were probably what's driving, whether it was anger or shame or something along those lines that was making me react to things that not even my ex-wife, just anyone would say around me that would trigger some of those feelings. Um, it's really been a challenge to first learn about them and then figure out what to do with them. And a lot of that for me has been through meditation, breath work, which I've been doing now for a little bit. Really just finding that inner peace with myself and understanding that those all those things that happened to me in the past don't define me. And where the most important part is for me to be present every single moment of every single day, and just read the room, kind of to be a little cliche about it. Just to understand that nobody, my even if my wife now is, even if she says something critical of me or something I said or something I did, it's not out of spite. It's out of either curiosity or love or something else. So I'm gotten a lot better at waiting a beat, remembering that fact before I just knee jerk react.
Pause. Yeah, that's a good thing. It is one of those difficult things that especially men deal with, is the shame and guilt associated with how they reacted to so many situations in the past. I still deal with it today with, you know, there was times when that anger was so bad that I would be walking in front of my wife just totally ticked off, and she's like, hey, hey, hey. But here I am in the middle of a store, storming about and kind of blowing up. And I reflect on that a lot, because how we react to emotions is very important. And young men especially need to know you're going to feel those hostilities, you're going to feel the pain and the hate of not knowing and understanding what you're going through at that present time. And it's definitely not your partner. And I think if we learn earlier on to lean in and adjust with the partner to those situations, that's when we can actually excel. The quicker we own up to our own mistakes and say, okay, I made a mistake, the better and quicker we can move on with a better life for both involved in the relationship.
Yeah, and then learning from those incidences too.
Yes, big, big. So a lot of that comes with communication skill and how to talk to one another, not only to your wife, but to individuals out there. A lot of the times it's hard to express what you're truly feeling, because we don't want to offend people and we don't want to be offended. So understanding how to communicate is vital. How do we communicate better?
Oh, listen. That's the biggest thing. Listening. It's what is my wife and I were talking about this morning. It was an outdoor event, and we're here in Michigan, and in April and May the weather could be a little sketch, right? It could either be beautiful and sunny, 5 and 7, sunny and 75, or it can be like it is today, rainy and 50. Um, and yesterday we had scheduled this outdoor event. We had planned it for months, and there were men showing up in shorts. There was a man showed up in like a button down shirt and jeans, and he was the one that was whining about being the coldest. And I was like, okay, guys, communication, right? It's an outdoor event. Did you not read the thing? It's an outdoor event. You might want to check the weather forecast before you come on out. So that's part of communicate listening it's not listening, but it's reading and being thorough in taking when you're taking in information, whether it's verbal or written. Slow down, listen to the words or hear the words or read the words, and listen for understanding of what the person's saying or what the text is saying, and then take action from there. But a lot of people don't do that. Everybody is in such a hurry all the time, moving so fast. Oh yeah, it's at 8 o'clock. Okay, I'll be there. It's 8 o'clock at this place. I'll be there. Not thinking. Oh, it's an outside event. Oh, it's 50 degrees outside. I might want to be prepared.
That is so huge in everybody's life, Bob, and it's remarkable. We tend to use that as an excuse, and eh, I've used it. Yes, I'm so busy, and yes, but it's really how we intake that information and prioritize it. So it's really part of good communication if you're not clear to follow up and really make sure that you've got the information proper, and that shows that you care about that relationship, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And it also helps too on my part. My ownership part of it is to be thorough when I'm communicating, whether it's verbally or in writing, to be thorough. And I may not have been clear enough yesterday that I could have put outdoor event, instead of just the location. The way I described the location, it was an outdoor pavilion, so it was or a pavilion, so it was kind of assumed that it was outdoor. But if I had to put outdoor pavilion, maybe people would have clicked a little bit. So I have responsibility in that as well to make sure I'm communicating clearly and effectively. So it makes it easier for people who are busy and preoccupied, like we all are now, to get all the information they need.
And that magic word popped up again, assume. If we capture that, we can actually get clarity. So we really have to be careful of what we're doing on both ends of communication. That's for sure. Uh, you talk about common interest with your partner. I find this to be very important. Uh, and sometimes we find later on in life, hey, we don't have anything in common. And if we can get that through to the younger generation, I find it very vital. Don't just fall for the first one that loves you. Make sure that you have those interests and you're compatible.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, absolutely. And that was my mistake on round one. I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world. My kids are amazing. They're going to do amazing things in their lives. So it was all meant to be, and it was all worthwhile. But yeah, there were so many red flags, before my first marriage that I didn't see, because again, I was that exactly what you just described. First person that paid any attention to me, or felt like they liked to be around me, or were interested in me in any way. And as the years went by, we had less and less in common. Um, aside from our kids, we really didn't have much in common. The things I wanted to do, I always loved playing, the beer league softball, beer league hockey, and she would always question, "Well, why are you going to do that? I don't understand. Why do you have to go to the bar after and have a beer with the guys?" Well, because I need men in my, I needed men in my life. I needed that fellowship and that companionship of masculinity, because all I was getting was the femininity at home, and the so that was a huge piece of my life. And actually, once I finally, unfortunately, made the decision to give that up, that's when the marriage, it was going along probably like this, and then it just right down the drain, because I gave those things up, and I was missing that piece, and it was too hard to cope at that point.
So, what was that moment that it went rock bottom for you, Bob?
when I decided to make her happy and give up the things that I love doing, which were playing softball and hockey.
Interesting. So we have to make sure to love ourselves, and that means to be able to do those experiences that we want to experience. And you know, I often say, hey, would you like to experience this with me? Sharing experiences. If you can't share experience, it's really not worth the time, is it?
Oh, no, absolutely. That's what my wife and I do now. We just got back from an experience last week. We rented an RV for the first time, drove it 13 and a half hours from Michigan down to Arkansas, and went glamping. So, and it was an experience. Every moment of the whole trip was an experience to remember. It was so from being on the road and learning that you can actually park an RV overnight in a Cracker Barrel parking lot, which we didn't know until we actually got on the road, which was awesome. Um, just all kinds of things that we learned along the way. And we have a great time together when we do stuff like that. And it's just every moment is an adventure. And if you're able to find someone and be with someone who is as open to that type of adventure as you are, that's the golden ticket right there.
There's a huge difference when you accepted that you needed to be with somebody that was in alignment with you.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's big. So we should take time before we jump in and make sure we qualify. I like that a lot.
Absolutely. And I had this conversation with someone in the last couple of weeks. Someone that was in the dating pool and looking for, and I said, it's hard. Dating is hard. I've heard tons of stories even in the last, I've been with my wife now for 10 years, so it's been a minute, but even the last 5 or so years where I just hear guys complaining about how difficult it is. My advice to them is just keep going. Go if you got to go on 1,000 dates to find the one. It's not. You're not going to get lucky for the first or second time. You gotta try. You gotta try people on literally, and find the one that checks all the boxes, and to settle for something or someone that doesn't check all the boxes is it's just going to come back to bite you down the road. And there's how many millions of I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but how many millions of people are there in this country, just in the US alone. um, there's someone for everyone. You just got to find her or him or whomever it is to that person that checks all the boxes and makes it you know uh, probably the biggest one for me was someone that is going to um, support me and celebrate me in the things that I want to do. Unlike my ex, who would give me a hard time if I wanted to go play ball or play, do something, go even golf or whatever, to support that. My wife now, I've had the men's group now for 5 years, and every other Saturday morning, I was getting up to go and spend 2 3 hours, and she supported every minute of it. Whereas my ex-wife, she'd been, why are you doing this? I don't understand. You should be spending time with me and the kids, and blah 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 blah. That's finding that kind of person that fits into what, if that's your jam, then great. That's the kind of woman that you should be with. But um, if you need that freedom and you need that have that connection and relationships with other people, you got to find that person that jives with that and supports it and celebrates it with you. That, hey, you've got a growing men's group or whatever the case may be, to keep things going and keep it. So, and then you gain you get a lot of respect for that. I mean, men, that's one of our things, right? Men want respect, women want love. So if you're giving her the appropriate amounts of love in letting you have those experiences outside of the relationship, she's going to give you that respect for being consistent and having the boundaries to go and do it.
Yeah. So I want to kind of segue into your coaching and what you offer. Uh, do you bring ladies into your coaching and have the guys experience different frames of mind from what I mean by that is sometimes we look at our wife and we don't like to hear what she says, but sometimes if we hear it from other women, we might pay attention a little more. Is any of that sort of in your coaching?
No, what I tend to do is I take men back to the fundamentals. I actually I use the acronym EMPOWER. It's environment, mindset, purpose, opportunities, well-being, and resources. So having the right environment, having things set up for you to thrive and enjoy life, whatever that may be. Mindset goes without saying. You've got to have a positive growth mindset. You can If you have a fixed mindset, that's my old life. When I graduated from college, I thought I knew everything. I stopped learning. I didn't pick up an educational book for about 20 years after I graduated from college, and I missed out. I missed out all the books I've read in the last 10 or 15 years. I'm like, if I'd have known this when I was in my 30s, I could be on top of the world right now. Obviously, purpose. A lot of men, especially like I mentioned earlier, we get to that point in our whether it's in our marriages or with our kids, especially, they go off to college, and all of a sudden, when you stood there and said, "My purpose is to raise my family for the last 15 to 18 years," and all of a sudden you get to that point where all the kids are gone, they're doing their thing, they don't need dad so much anymore. What's my purpose? And you're standing there with nothing to do other than maybe go play a round of golf with your buddies. So having a deeper purpose that carries you into your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s is super important. Having opportunities to whether it's again have something purposeful to do, whether it's financial stability, building your retirement portfolio, things like that we work on. Obviously, your well-being, your mental, physical, spiritual health, super important, and having fundamentals around those. A lot of guys, don't emphasize that physical health, that mental health, that spiritual health. They just keep going and doing on the hamster wheel, and they're burning themselves out. And to be able to have those fundamentals in place and good habits in place is super important. And then resources, you know, obviously having enough money to do the things that you want to do, that's a big one. My wife and I now love to travel, so having the resources to do that, so we can travel and have those experiences, like I mentioned, super important. So those are all the things that I like to work on with men and make sure that they're hitting all those, checking all those boxes, and then again having the foundation, the fundamentals, and then using those to build up upon.
Yeah. So building up self-esteem is big, and you went through this with your weight loss journey. How do you feel compared to your old self to your new self, Bob?
Oh, it's not even the same guy. Not even the same guy. That guy used to walk up a flight of stairs and get winded. Um, he used to get angry at the drop of a hat. Um, take offense and judge people walking down the street for looking different or being different or whatever. And that guy doesn't exist anymore. He pokes his head up every once in a while, and I try to shove him back in the can, um, but for the most part, that guy no longer exists, and I do my best to love and serve everybody that I come across, and try to leave this place better than the way I found it.
Amen. I like that a lot. You know, shoving him back in the can, I think that's very important. We all have these trigger points, and if we can recognize those, we can actually shove him back in the can a lot easier. So I like that visualization. You know, just get back in the can. It's great.
Yeah, let's get back in there, and we'll keep on moving.
Bob, is there anything else you think we should speak about today before we wrap things up?
Um, I think I covered all the high points of things that I wanted to get on record with you. So, other than that, just if men are interested in talking about what it looks like to work together, if they want to strengthen their marriage, build trusting relationships, or align their ambition with their values, so they can thrive in their businesses, I'd love to talk to you. I offer a free consultation. Go to my website, Men Becoming Better Men, here on the wall behind me, menbecomingbettermen.com. Inquire on there, and I'd love to have a talk with you. We can see what you're up against, and where it is you want to go. I mean, that's really probably the most important thing, is having an understanding of where you want to go. If you don't like where you're at, you obviously want to go somewhere else. We can help put that roadmap together and get you from where you are to where you want to be.
So, is there any social sites that people can look you up on and see if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, sure. My Instagram is the Relationship Engineer. Also, same on TikTok, the Relationship Engineer. Those are probably the two easiest where you can see some of my content, kind of get a feel for some of the things I talk about, things I work with people on, and you can obviously message me through either of those as well.
It's always good to speak with people out there doing good things, Bob, and you're doing remarkable things. Divorce rate is through the roof, and if we can educate people how to overcome those things before that divorce, it's always a good thing. And I appreciate you sharing with us today, and I wish you the best.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us today. If you found this podcast enlightening, entertaining, educational in any way, please share, like, subscribe, and join us right back here next week for another great episode of the Dead America Podcast. I'm Ed Waters, your host. Enjoy your afternoon, wherever you might be.